PodcastCoug Season 8, Episode 8.
You are listening to the PodcastCoug Radio Network with your host, James Laurie. The PodcastCoug is your weekly Coug On Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. And now, here is your host, PodcastCoug.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the PodcastCoug. I am James Laurie, the PodcastCoug, and you are listening to the PodcastCoug, where we're all things Cougar football, 30 minutes of Coug talk, and we're talking about Oregon and our upcoming game against ASU in Tempe on Saturday. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Another week, and it's another loss. Oregon 38, Washington State 24. We win as a team, we lose as a team, but this one didn't hurt, right? On Saturday at Oregon, it did not hurt down in Eugene after a brutal 44-6 loss at home on Arizona, with Arizona, right? By far, that was the worst performance in many, many years. That Arizona game in Pullman a couple weeks ago. Then we went to the road for Oregon, right? Eugene, number 9 Oregon, faced some big challenges, right? And we did pretty good. Moral victories, though, right? We did pretty good. And let's just count that as a moral victory. Doesn't count, but you know what? We performed, unlike Arizona, right? And we played way better than we did against UCLA. So we didn't pull off a win at Eugene, but plenty of good things happened from that loss. And, despite being outplayed and the energy was there from start to finish, and we believe in ourselves, the team kind of just came back, right? And they were ready to play. And Eugene is probably the hardest stadium of all Pac-12s, the loudest. Everybody doesn't like to come to Pullman, but there is a universal, really feeling unanimous that Eugene, playing in Autzen Stadium, is really, really tough. And we did a great job. We really did a good job. And, hats off. And it was a moral victory. And how about that fourth quarter finish, right? Playing for 60 minutes. We just played the entire game. Couldn't match their dudes, at all, but we did make some plays and when we had the chance. But we just can't match up to all their dudes. Their talent. So, we had 21 first downs in the game against Oregon, and Oregon's had 20. Okay, and we outgained Oregon through the air 438 to 293, and we didn't turn the ball over one time, not even once. So the biggest change for us, however, was scoring points. That was the biggest challenge. We scored 24 for the game, following a 10-point and a 6-point performance the last 2 weeks, against Arizona and UCLA. So, our offense performed better, right, than Arizona and UCLA. And unfortunately, we can't rush the ball, and we're averaging under 3 yards per carry, totaling. We just had 57 rushing yards for the day. So on defense, though, we allowed 248 yards to Oregon's. We allowed 248 that Oregon had on the ground. So we gave up about 200 yards in rushing. We just couldn't stop the run. And against the nation's, so-called number 1 offense in the country. And so now we're heading into our 4-game stretch where we can take on at least 3 out of those, out of those teams. 3 of the teams have losing records. We're talking about Arizona State, Stanford, and Cal. And then we got Colorado, who just lost to Stanford. So ASU is going to be tough. We're going to talk about ASU in the second half of this episode, but it's a stretch, somewhat of a stretch, but we should win at least 3 out of the next 4, right? We've got ASU, Stanford, home. We got Stanford at home, Berkeley, and then the Buffs at home. Right. So before we travel to Seattle, to the AC, which is going to be the 123rd and possibly the last game for many, many years for the AC. So we got a chance to extend our bowl streak to 8 straight years. So again, our schedule for the next 4, right? We got Tempe, we got Stanford at home, and we got Berkeley, and then we got the Buffs at home. So it looks like out of those 4, I'm thinking at least 3. We're hoping for all 4 we can take, but I think definitely we can take 3 out of those 4 unless we just collapse. And, coming out of Eugene, we were primed for a major bounce back. going forward, and that's Arizona State. And remember, we have a couple of key players, including tight end Cooper Mathers and how about receiver Lincoln Victor, who had a phenomenal day in Eugene, right? Link had 161 yards in Oregon, but more impressively, he had 16 catches, and that was a Washington State record, right? A record of 16 catches. Sweet. Right, that is not bad. And in addition to Link's fully back in our offense, we got receiver, Kyle Williams, who had 5 catches for 102 yards, and he was a huge factor. And then we had Cam Ward, and so we got back-to-back weeks coming up short of 200 passing yards and throwing his first 3 picks of the season. Ward threw 438 yards and a touchdown with 0 turnovers. 0 picks and 0 fumbles, right? Completed 71%, right? So of passes. So now we're going to focus on Skattebo, and we're talking about the Sun Devils next, right here on the second half of the Podcast Coug.
Hey, Coug fans. You're podcasting with James Laurie and the PodcastCoug Radio Network. The PodcastCoug is your weekly Coug on Demand show, featuring all things Cougar football in Washington State. To help you get through the week, hit the subscribe button or check us out on iTunes, the App Store, iOS, Google Play, Stitcher, or at PodcastCoug.com.
The real estate agent you work with matters, and a great agent helps you own the home of your dreams. And your dreams come true with James Laurie at Coldwell Banker Bain, representing clients like you 24/7, from condos to colonials and everything in between. If you're selling, buying, need a price analysis, or just a contractor referral, ask James, winner of the 2015 through 2019 International Coldwell Banker Diamond Award, with dozens and dozens of 5-star Zillow reviews and Seattle Magazine's 5-star award winner for 2018 through 2020. James Laurie, Coldwell Banker Bain, at 425-466-3672 or jameslaurie.net. Rock solid results.
You're listening to the Podcast Coug.
2 running backs in with the quarterback. Signals called. All man in motion goes through to the right side. Handoff leads out to the right side. Touchdown, Washington State.
You are listening to the Podcast Coug.
Welcome back to the second half of the Podcast Coug. I am James Laurie, the Podcast Coug. We're all things Cougar football, all things Cougs. It's Washington State at Arizona State on Saturday. Tempe, 5 o'clock, Pac-12 Network. Should be sunny, 75 degrees. Actually, we're going from a 39 in Pullman to an 89, a 39 to an 89, and then by the time it's kick around 5 o'clock, 75. Cougs are 4-3, ASU 1-6. Don't let that fool you. We're going to talk about that. History between the two meetings. Of course, Arizona State 28 wins, Washington State 17. They got 2 ties last year. 28-18 in Pullman. The Cougs 28-18. We won that one. We've won 2 in a row, by the way. Rankings, both teams aren't ranked. The line is Washington. We're a 7-point favorite. Mountain American Stadium, home of the Sun Devils. Now, that originally is the Sun Devil Stadium, and it used to have a capacity back in the day of 75,000. Today, it's 54,000. They reduced it from 75 to 54. A huge, like 2019, they had a big improvement, I think, on their facilities, and just really made that stadium a lot better, a lot tighter, smaller, right? We're going to be there. We're going to be there. We're flying in Saturday morning. Flying in on Saturday morning. Wife has a conference. We're at a 5-star resort where her conference is at, and it just happens to be that our game against Arizona State is the same week as my wife's conference. So, tagging along for that. We're going to hit Cave Creek and Carefree. We're going to check out those neighborhoods. Love Cave Creek. Just love that area, and Carefree. Love the picturesque, the mountains, the hills, the Segura. We're going to maybe check out Paradise Valley, Verrado, Buckeye, Lynchfield, and Fountain Hills. Maybe check those areas out. I would love also to go see Saguaro National Park. That's in Tucson. I got a big fan of those Saguaro cactus, that natural hillside. Think about your backyard, Hollywood style, just Hollywood, a Western film instead of all concrete. Just love that area. I know it's 120 in August. That's brutal. But anyway, love to see that national park in Tucson and check that out. But anyway, back back to the Mountain American Stadium. It went, like I said, it went through a 5-year, $304 million renovation, which is completed in 2019. So anyway, the whole world was watching, of course. I think maybe you have a Saturday where Arizona State just smacked the number 5 team, UW, in the country repeatedly in the face. They should have maybe won that game on the road. And by the way, hats off to the Arizona Diamondbacks. They're in the World Series. How about that, right? Texas Rangers starting on Saturday. Actually, right around our kickoff time. I think the World Series is going to be Saturday night. I'm not sure. I think it's 7:00. I know Tucson. I know Oregon State is in Tucson. There's 3 things going on. I mean, right? You got Arizona State. You got the Wildcats playing Oregon State. That's a big game. And then you got the World Series. I mean that's huge, right? And I'm sure there's bandwagon people who don't follow baseball, and that is it's going to be huge. Now, that is actually at Texas for the Rangers, so I don't think there's going to be a lot of issues with all that locally in terms of traffic. But I think we've got a lot of competing things going on, and I believe the World Series is at night. I'm thinking, I'm not so sure, but that could be where we're playing at 5:00. I think the series starts at 7:00. So that's going to be interesting. Congratulations to the Diamondbacks. But anyway, back to the UW game. They almost finished off that game. They were so physical. Skattebo was everywhere and everything, right? They're running back. And how about the Pac-12 officials? They just, there was this Husky defensive back just ripped a shirt off, this jersey off the ASU receiver. I mean, almost, right? And they didn't even call PI. Here the UW's heading for the undefeated UW, heading for the Big Ten. And, that 6 points could have made the difference on that 1-5 team. And a lot of people are chiming in on that YouTube video and where really the officials should have called PI and what could have been the outcome of that could have totally changed the game. So anyway, it could have been that Arizona State UW was a trap game for UW, possibly a letdown trap game. UW was just flat. It was their worst performance of the year by far. Penix couldn't do anything. They couldn't run the ball. I mean, they couldn't do anything. It was punt, pouring down rain. Huge emotional win over to Oregon the week before, right? So, guys, ASU is probably the best 1-6 team in the country, and I mean, they are the best 1-6 team, Power 5 in the nation, I think. And we've got them on Saturday, and this is not going to be just a cakewalk. This is not going to be easy. This team is for real, and they can beat us, and they will run it down our throats. We can't really stop the run. Now, a year ago we did. But, we're thin. We need to take them seriously. And, they're not Arizona. Their quarterback, they're on their fourth quarterback. And by the way, the Wildcats are 2 plays away from being 6-1 right now. Think about that. JDL has been injured. If DeLauro was injured earlier this year, they probably would be 5-2. They could be 6-1. We're talking about Arizona. And anybody who sleeps on the Wildcats is in for a surprise. And I wouldn't be surprised if they beat Oregon State and DJ. I mean, that backup quarterback, I think he's better than DJ all year long, all day long. I mean, there's no question on computer, but we'll see what happens on Saturday night. Anyway, if we lose to Arizona State, if we lose to ASU, we're tanked. I mean, it's just going to be one of those years. But we're with a 4-0 start, and I doubt it we're going to make it to a bowl game if we lose to Arizona State. We could, but hard to read. Their performance against the UW is anything but a letdown. I mean, that was a letdown for the Dogs. They forced 4 turnovers, and they only scraped 7 points. Now they are a one-dimensional team, with Skattebo. right? And which they allow to stack, they'll allow us to stack up the box, and we can avoid turnovers and make some explosive plays, and we won't be able to score against enough to win this one. I mean, they are going to literally use Skattebo, and their quarterback is he can get it done, but a couple of good plays, and I'll tell you that Skattebo can make things happen. So Coach Kenny Dillingham hasn't really fully adopted the system he's stumbled into, kind of inherited that Arizona State. He's had multiple teams, under the 350 total yards, and so multiple games, and so. Like I said, I think Skattebo and some good tight ends, they're going to play us like UCLA and Oregon State. And if our offensive line implodes again, which is possible, I think we might lose. I think we might lose this game. And it's not going to be fun. I went down to UCLA. I went down to the Pasadena game on and over and back. That wasn't fun. It was great to be in the stadium and watch our team, but, I'd love to see this Tempe victory. I've never been to the Mountain whatever stadium, Sun Devil Stadium. I've never been to that stadium before. I've driven by, but I think Phoenix Cardinals played there, the NFL team, years ago. Anyway, Skattebo, who is this guy? Portal transfer, Sac State, Sacramento State. He was named the Big Sky Offensive Player of the Year last year after rushing 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns to help Sac State go 11-0 in their regular season. Okay, undefeated, 11-0 Sac State. And they became the second-ranked FCS team in the nation, number 2 FCS team in the nation. It was all Skattebo, 1,400 yards, 7 touchdowns. So, his 1,400, it was the 7th best in the FCS last year, 5th highest graded running back in the FCS, recorded a first down or a touchdown on 40% of his touches. That's the highest tally in the FCS. And he was stuffed at or behind the line of scrimmage just 5% of the time, which is the lowest, by the way, the 16th lowest in the FCS. This guy is we need Skattebo. We need a guy like Skattebo, right? So at least more consistent pressure. So Brennan Jackson and Ron Stone are healthy, but injuries and health issues have just ripped us across the rest of our defense. Edges Quinn Roth and Rom Stevenson will be out this weekend. And Edge Lawrence Faltia is out with a torn ACL, and we need something from Stone and Jackson. They need to step up. So our depth right now revolves around junior Andrew Edson and true freshman Isaac Terrell, and Terrell's coming off of that hamstring injury that sidelined him for on the Arizona game. So we've just got a ton of injuries now. ASU also has a ton of injuries, right? We also have depth. We do have depth, though. We've got young guys, young players that are stepping up. They're second and thirds. They're coming up. We got a lot of new starts, but we are hurting. I think we're going to be okay offensively. With Ward, we're going to be fine. But our running game, obviously, is very questionable. Up front and in the middle, our defense is questionable. We rank 9th in the Pac-12 in tackling. And we failed to generate a turnover each of the last 2 games. We haven't had any to generate turnovers at all. So what can we do? We've got to stop Skattebo. It's as simple as that. We got to tackle and stop Skattebo. We just have to. And they're going to make us pay if we don't. And Skattebo is just going to run it down our throats, like I said. But they are trending upwards. And they're getting better and better every Saturday, and they are a one-dimensional game, but they're coming off of a 6-game losing streak, and they played just really well, very impressive. They are coming again 6-game winning streak, and that UW, that 15-7 loss at number 5 was impressive. They had the 7-3 lead in the 4th quarter against number 5 UW. But then UW snagged a pick 6 that helped them hold on for the win. Kenny Dillingham. He's first year, he previously was at Oregon. He was OC, offensive coordinator, in Florida State and Auburn and University of Memphis. This guy, Dillingham, is a good coach. He really is. He's a really good coach. He's got his players believing in them, in him, believing that they can win. They're just so close. They are so close. Dillingham's first year, they're looking at their first win since their season opener. They took out Southern Utah FCS 24-21 on their, but they're looking for their first Pac-12 win. I hope it's not us, frankly, but they are really, really heading in the right direction. And, they limited Penix like nobody else all year. Nobody has come close to holding Michael Penix back, intercepting him twice, recovering one of his fumbles. And check this out. All three of the last three losses have come by one score. One score. So the last three of their losses have come from a one-score ball game. They're on the verge of winning. They're on the cusp of winning. I hope we're not next, right? Trenton Bourguet, their quarterback. He's got some issues, right? He's fourth string, and he's not, it's not the, he's got some issues. He might be better next year, but really he's not putting up the numbers on the board. He's not putting up numbers, and I think ASU's, they're trying to figure it out. They're just trying to figure it out. But they have a great receiver, Elijah Badger. He caught 8 catches for 50 yards against UW, and there's a reason why they rank last in the Pac-12 in offense. But Bourguet has more interceptions, actually 3, than touchdowns. Okay, which is 1. He's got 3 interceptions and 1 touchdown, right? So remember, they have a ton of injuries. The Sun Devils have forced to turn to Bourguet, and originally their third stringer, originally I think it was their third or fourth, they had quarterbacks Jaden Rashada and Drew Payne. They're injured and out. So no, I'm sorry. Bourguet is their third stringer, but he can run the ball as well. So anyway, we got to bring down Skattebo. It's just one-dimensional guy. We got to bring him down. So anyway, what happened last year? We took Arizona State down in Pullman, like I said, 28-18, and it was Nakia Watson had a great game, a very rare great game, 116 yards. We beat it on our rushing game, 116 yards and 3 touchdowns, and it was 28-0 at halftime, Dad's weekend. Right? And then the rest, we just sealed the rest of the way for the second half. Ward completed 22 of 37, 219 total, and that win became bowl eligible for the 7th time in the past 8 seasons. So, and we had walk-on running back, now, Dylan Payne, walk-on running back. He's going to miss on Saturday with a high ankle sprain. We've got Jalen Jenkins is out. He's gone for forever, right? He's gone, violating team rules, gone for good. And I hope Jalen can learn from this setback in life. I hope he figures things out. And, I always say a setback is a setup, and hopefully sometimes it takes setbacks in life, whether they're self-inflicted or not, to set us up for something better. I hope he learns from this, whatever it was. But I do like how Dicker's pretty serious about team rules, violating. Leach was that way. I don't think Paul Wolf was strict at all. And you're gone. You play by the rules. If you don't, you're gone. So anyway, seriously, we are struggling to run the ball. We're dead last in the Pac-12. And we need another breakout game from Nokia. We just need like he had it a year ago. And so we've got to earn this, our first win since we beat Oregon State back in September. That was a long time ago. We've lost 3 in a row, and we need a lot of everything to beat Arizona State on Saturday. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great weather. Hey, that's it for episode 8 of the 8th season of the Podcast Coug. Thank you so much for listening. Washington State at ASU. Have a great weekend, everybody. God bless, and go Cougs.
You've been listening to the Podcast Coug with your host, James Laurie. The Podcast Coug is your weekly Coug on Demand show featuring all things Cougs and Washington State Cougar football. This has been a presentation of the Podcast Coug Radio Network. Find us at podcastcoug.com.